I step towards the Duramax, and as I'm stepping forward, I believe his name is now Joshua Zeminski. He steps towards me with a pistol in his hand, and
Oh,
as
line.
as I'm walking, as I'm walking towards to put out the fire, I drop the fire extinguisher and I take a step back.
Okay. When you step back from Mr. Zeminski, what's your plan?
My plan is
Aggressively
to
step back.
get out of that situation and go back north down Sheridan Road to where the car source lot number 2 was.
And did you get back? Were you able to go in a northerly direction?
I wasn't.
Describe what happened.
This is prison
once
audition
I take that
tape, by the
step
way.
back, I look over my shoulder, and Mr. Rosenbaum was now running from my right side, and I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were three people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
Don't try to talk when you're crying. That never works.
That's what That's what I run.
Time for our break anyway.
Let's take a break.
You can just relax for a minute, sir. We're going to take a break about 10 minutes, and please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen.
That is hard to watch.
Yeah.
All right. Round the horn. Real or fake?
Well, that's either the most fake attempt of trying to cry ever, or that was like more than crying. That was like a panic attack, a hyperventilating episode.
Felt real to me. I mean, one thing that people immediately point out is there's no tears, so he can't be crying because there's no tears. Of course, those same people, it's like if he hadn't cried at all, those are the same people who'd probably been like, well, he didn't show any emotion. He's obviously a sociopath, right?
I grew up with 2 sisters. I've seen my fair share of fake crying. That was genuine, and it's also much darker than anything I've ever seen. Like the lung spasms themselves, that's not something you can really fake. Like, you don't have that kind of control over your lungs. What he was doing there was like, you can tell he's been through some trauma. That was, you don't need tears to display that emotion. What he was going through is, he's kind of reliving the moment. I think it's absolutely real. And that's some of the most realist shit I've seen from a person.
It's the most realist shit.
Yeah. It's not funny.
No,
I mean, jokes aside, I mean, it did sound like it was more than crying. Like,
yeah, he sounded like he was having like a panic attack PTSD episode.
Yes. Yeah. Panic attack is the way I would describe that.
Yeah. It didn't even really, it's not like he was really even crying, more than just like freaking out. But yeah, anyway. So now the question, was putting him on the stand, was that a smart move?
I don't think so. I mean, you can get maybe not at first, but I mean, after watching everything, it seemed that he seemed genuine, right? He was a genuine witness. Whenever he was answering, and he answered really well. He was coached really well for his self-defense answers.
Well, okay, so in my book, the only reason you would ever put your client on the stand is if you've got nothing else. Because, and Nick's having some technical difficulty. So in my mind, like, and before Rittenhouse, this is the first time I've ever seen the defense put their client on the stand when they had a pretty strong case going into testify, because everybody knows the reason you don't ever want to take the stand is because no matter how not guilty you think you are, these lawyers are, it's just, they can do magic with their, like, the way they frame the question. They can make the most innocent person look like Hitler just by asking them different questions that kind of elicit different kinds of emotions in the people who are listening. And so as much as like his examination seemed real, like the only reason I can think of why they would sit down and think, yeah, putting Rittenhouse on the stand is a good idea, the only thing I could think of was they wanted to first show Rittenhouse as this kind of like, you know, this kid who was just in over his head and he's traumatized by this thing. And then they wanted to show the prosecution picking on him to like trick the prosecution into really coming off as this big bully, trying to bully this kid who's obviously fucked up because of what he went through. But did that work? I mean, was this,
usually whenever the prosecution, I say usually, I haven't watched too many of these, but I imagine when the prosecution takes the stand and does their cross, they're going to take their time and point out every hypocrisy, every contradiction he's made. And for the most part, he made it through mostly unscathed. The things that maybe he stumbled on was, he admitted he lied about being an EMT. Probably should have said he exaggerated his qualifications rather than lying, but he said he lied. Okay, but of all things to lie about, like, that's not what he's on trial for. And he came off very human, and I feel like the prosecution was actually not prepared. Like, I don't think they were expecting to have the opportunity.
Well, no, they weren't, because the first thing Binger did was say, "Oh, excuse me, I got to go to my office real quick." Y'all remember that?
Yeah. Go get
so he was obviously not prepared for that, and nobody was. I was blown away when I heard he was taking the stand, because I didn't, because it just seems like all downside, very little upside.
Is the defense playing poker? That like called his bluff? It's not what you would expect from your defense team.
I don't know.
No, I was blown away.
It could be that he just felt like he had to. Also,
well, Kyle could have compelled him and said, "No, I need to."
Yeah.
Well, the defense,
they can't stop him.
Well, the defense said it was that that they said that it was in the advice of their lawyers. Like, I think they were implying that they were supporting his decision to do it. But I wonder. I feel like they should say that anyway, well, even if they were like, "No, Kyle, this is not a good idea," and he's like, "I'm doing it anyway."
Your defense is gonna be like, "We tried to stop him, but we couldn't." It's like, he's a kid; you should be able to convince him.
Well, he was well coached, so that could be completely viable. I mean, they probably had lengthy discussions on this ahead of time. They're like, "Well, if you're going to do it, this is the game plan."
Well, y'all know my take. Y'all know my take already, which is the jury's already made up their mind. So I don't think him going on the stand or not going on the stand. I think if you had a parallel universe, it wouldn't change the outcome at this point.
That is the biggest wild card, the jury. We have no idea who they are, what they're thinking at this time. We don't even know, like, are they tuning out at this point? Are they still taking notes? Like, we have no clue because you can't see them. And that's what scares me. It's like this jury could just be like, hurry up and finish so we can convict this guy, or hurry up and finish because we want to acquit him.
And it drives us. It's kind of it's a very uncomforting feeling to know that the actual trial process might just be 99% waste of time, 1% jury selection, and maybe like one other. And then basically, like I said before, you have to at least give the jury some grounds to do what they want to do. If it's grounds plus, intent from the jury, then they can do whatever they want. So if they're hostile towards Rittenhouse, he's probably getting convicted. If they're sympathetic towards Rittenhouse, he's probably being acquitted. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I think they do have a random jury because they went through selection rather quickly. Neither the prosecution or defense took a lot of time to knock people out. They're like, they went through their standard questions and boom, what's good? Let's go. It was a one-day jury selection.
People said they did research on the people who were summoned on their social media profile and offered to give it to the defense so they can eliminate people or try to trim it towards their favor, but they declined that. So a lot of people were getting mad at the defense for just, declining to use resources that were offered to them.
Yeah, really the only thing we know about the jury was about that guy who was unseated, which is, you can actually learn a little bit from that because you heard about that, right? There was a juror who was unseated because he said a Jacob Blake joke to a security guard, and the security guard reported him. So they took him off the jury.
So
And odds are, just real quick, odds are if you're a guy in the jury who can make a Jacob Blake joke, if you're going to ask me, are they on the Second Amendment side or the progressive left side, it's pretty obvious which one they were going to be on. So it would have been good for Kyle to have that guy stay on the jury. It sounds like, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I just Googled it because they do have some very basic demographics on the jury. We know that there's 20 people, 11 of them are women, 9 are men. Now it's 8 are men because they kicked one juror out, right?
Right.
19,
or they may have replaced him with an alternate.
True.
Do they have alternate?
So 19 of them are white, 1 of them are Hispanic. That's all you know.
I am
one demographic missing from there that everybody saw.
Yeah. I mean, we could just say
The Jews.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, no
Yep.
Jews. Yeah, they're the ones that are running.
They're the ones organizing everything behind the scenes, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, I don't. Dude, but here's what are you supposed to make of that, though? There's women and men and Hispanics on either side of the equation here. So
Kenosha is also like vast majority white. So if you're talking about a jury of your peers, it makes sense. I think here, let me see if I can Google the demographics, U.S. Bureau. Yeah, 80% white.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know what to make of that. Just because
that's a lot.
A lot of jurors. Yeah, it is a lot.
Well, no, a lot of white people compared to everyone else.
Now, let me ask
Does that
this.
scare you? Would you feel threatened there?
Would I feel threatened there? Only half. The other half would be kicking back.
Yeah, but getting a unanimous, so you have to get unanimous for conviction, but you also have to get unanimous for acquittal, and then if there's any mix, then it's a mistrial, right?
It's
At least that's how it usually is. A hung jury. How are they going to get that many people to agree?
So what they were explaining at the end of the trial today is they have I guess 20 people. He mentioned 18 today, so I think we lost another one, but no one noticed.
Yeah, they dismissed one woman because she was pregnant.
Okay,
that's right.
Strange that didn't come up earlier in the screening, but whatever.
Maybe she found out in the middle of it. It goes to her boyfriend, "You gotta knock me up. I gotta get out of this."
Yeah. So so that makes sense. They said that they were drawing lots effectively for the 12 who would be making the decision in deliberation. So all 18 are hearing it and being presented. I guess
only 12 get selected.
Only get 12 get selected from there. I mean, 18 people have to suffer through it, the whole trial.
What do y'all think about it being a majority women? Because do you think that would be in Kyle's favor or to his detriment? You do?
Oh man,
tell me why. Yes.
Oh wait, dude, you guys saw? Okay, in this video that we watched, they didn't show his mom crying in the.
That got me. I mean, I saw the mom crying.
Dude, but think about that. If it's mostly women, then that's the perfect narrative to display for the women jurors, right? Look, it's like your son is up there and he went through this horrible thing, so you should let him off, right?
Well, I mean, the
Nick is still having camera trouble.
Looks like it. Still, but I mean, I know it's stereotypical, but yeah, I mean, still a lot of that stuff applies, right?
We're just making it up. I mean, dude, I don't think it.
But it is. I mean, it's 9 and 11, right? It's not like it's 15 and 5.
I mean, me personally, I don't make any inferences whatsoever from the jury makeup because every person, like, there's every race and gender on every political whatever, bliggity blah. So this doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I won't. I mean, in a normal, non-polarizing case, maybe the assumptions, at least in the old thought, was women would be more sympathetic towards not killing somebody, especially someone else's kid.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't think that's much of a thought these days.
Yeah, that doesn't. I don't know. I can think of women being like more rah about the man shoot somebody.
I mean,
I don't know. 'Cause I feel like women are in general less in support of the Second Amendment and self-defense. As a result,
Statistically, that's probably true. Statistically, that's probably true, but probably not by much.
well,
maybe
I'd argue
maybe I'm wrong.
I think they're more in what I'm saying is they're less in favor of capital punishment. So
yeah, that's probably true.
If it's a capital punishment case,
I think it matters a lot if they see him as a child, then they'd have more sympathy for him.
He still has a baby face.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom. I don't know if you heard Nick, but we were talking about the whole like his mom crying in the audience too.
And how definitely play.
If you're a mom on the jury, that probably really did kind of reach you in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's and no masks either, and so that I think the only good reason that they should have done to put him on the stand is to like humanize him for the jury, so that they think, oh, maybe he's not this white supremacist lunatic that the president said to the world that he is.
Have you seen any criticism for the no masks? I haven't seen anything now that I think about it.
No, I'm the only one that noticed it because I'm the only one that said that. I'm the only one that said it makes a difference if the accused is masked.
Yeah,
it makes him look less human.
Chauvin would be free right now if he just took the mask off. I totally agree.
Dude, yeah, the prosecutor should have said that puppy dog face. We got to put a sheet over that ASAP, a white sheet, preferably with a point on the top.
The prosecution needs a mask because everyone freaking hates them right now. They just seem like assholes every time they question someone.
Yeah,
dude. So that's a good transition.
They were calling prosecutor Littlefinger.
Well, yeah, he looks like Littlefinger. He does.
So let's real quick before we move on, go around the circle. Putting him on the stand, good idea or bad idea? I say doesn't matter, but if I had to pick, I'd probably say bad idea.
I would say bad idea, don't do it. But now that they did it and it didn't sink the case, I think it's fine. But it didn't need to happen.
You're the defense, and you're advising Kyle. What would you tell him?
No, don't. Yeah, you're good. Especially if it's like we're already like slam dunking it every time we have a witness on the stand.
I would advise against it. It was high risk, low reward, but I think they came out slightly net positive from it.
Yeah, they did the onside kick, and they were already winning the game by like 14 points or something, and they could blow the whole thing by doing that. Yeah,
basically.
But yeah, it was damn entertaining. I mean, from an entertainment perspective, I'm glad they did it because it was definitely a big plot twist.
Especially like there's been a lot of twists, like a lot of like last minute introductions of evidence, the FBI stuff, the second drone tape.
Ooh.
Like, where did that come from? They wouldn't even.
It's amazing, how many people were watching that thing.
It was like an anonymous gift.
Every single time a new video came out, the jump kit guy was squirming in his seat just a little bit while he was watching the trial.
Yeah.
What was it we were talking? Was it last episode we were talking? It's that they introduced the FBI agent, and that's why we couldn't see him. They cut it during that.
But they removed they excluded him as evidence. They excluded his testimony. So the testimony of the FBI agent we didn't get to see got nullified by the judge.
Oh, so that was the result, because he was saying, "I can't believe you're providing evidence and withholding some too. Yeah. What is this cloaking and dagger bullshit?" To
Chris's point, the jury doesn't forget.
There's nothing more silly than the idea that we can have a jury forget that they heard something.
Yeah, which it's a shame nobody accidentally called and the first guy, Rosenbaum, a pedophile. They just needed someone to accidentally drop the P word.
Well, I mean, I don't think they want to a mistrial against their favor here. They don't want a retrial on this. Now, on the flip side, it seems like they might get a mistrial with prejudice because, like you said, once the jury hears something, they hear it, and the fact that prosecutor started going after the guy's Fifth Amendment rights.
Oh yeah, let's wait. Let's get there. So I guess let's real quick, just for the listeners, like tell them kind of what they're talking about if you haven't been following any of the shit that we've been rapping about. So we just finished talking about how they put Kyle Rittenhouse on the stand, and it surprised everybody towards the end of the trial. But the lead prosecutor, Binger, what's his first name? Something Binger. He's just this super slick lawyer. The whole trial, he and the judge have been butting heads, like pretty much the whole trial. And there's been a lot of times in the trial where he'll ask a question and then the judge will say, you can't do that, strike that, and then he'll rephrase the question. And every time he does that, it makes me wonder just a little bit, did he do that on purpose, just knowing he'd get a slap on the wrist, but he planted the seed in the mind of the jury, so it doesn't matter if the judge says forget. It's like the judge says, no, don't say that, but everybody already got the message, so it's too late. Do y'all know what I'm talking about?
With him, I think it's intentional. Now, if State Puff prosecutor said it, I could see where it was accidental. Because he just seems confident enough. This isn't his first prosecution, so he knows exactly what he's doing. Especially with the way the judge chewed him out, called him out on it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. So he'd been butting heads with this guy, especially in the pre-trial, but just on and off throughout the whole trial, they would stop everything so that he could tell the prosecutor that he was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. And the time when he finally just blew his stack was during the cross-examination of Rittenhouse. So I guess that's why this is relevant to what we're talking about.
Do you have the video of it?
Yes, I do. And so I'm kind of prepping for the video, but so Binger was like, he pretty much opened up with the cross-examination of Rittenhouse by asking him questions like, okay, so you didn't make a statement to the police. You didn't make any statements to the media. You didn't talk to anybody. In fact, during this trial is the first time that we have had any testimony from you whatsoever. And, so at first, Kyle, I think kind of like, I don't remember if he answered it or not. I mean, Kyle was kind of avoiding questions a lot when he knew if he was being led. But then the defense objects and says that he's attacking the defense. Yeah, the defense.
We're not lawyers, folks.
He's attacking his right to remaining silent. And it took, and I didn't catch that at first. Probably most people didn't. But then you think about it, and he's right. Like basically, what he was doing was he was criticizing him for not saying anything to the police. And his argument, but he's saving it all for now for the trial. And the argument, what his argument ultimately was going to be is, he must be like doctoring everything he says about his statement based on the information that he got during the process of the trial and from internet videos and stuff. Like he was trying to basically call Rittenhouse a liar. He was calling him a liar because he's only giving his statement now after everything has gone through and not when the process started. So de facto, he's criticizing him for being silent. And so the judge so we're going to start there. So he gets mad at him for two things. That, but then he also gets mad at him for asking Rittenhouse about, or he was giving him questions that was trying to lead him to answering questions about some statements that he made. Apparently, Rittenhouse was asked way back in the day, and it was on camera or tape or something. Somebody was asking him like, hey, if those were your stores being looted, what would you do about it? And he would say, well, if that happened to me, I wish I had my AR and I would shoot the shoplifters. And
he was trying to bait him into revealing that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And they agreed upon before the trial started, we're not talking about this because he didn't have a gun at the time he said that. So he was basically answering a hypothetical, and so it's not relevant to what we're talking about now. It was just, shitting. Like it shouldn't.
His bullshitting, and the ultimate action he did was call 911.
Right. So but for some reason, Binger decides I'm just going to bring this up anyway, and he did, and that's what you're about to see right now is the judge just lighting him up for doing both of those things like right after each other.
Your Honor, Mr. Binger is either forgetting the court's rulings or attempting to provoke a mistrial in this matter. He knows he can't go into this, and he's asking the questions. I asked the court to strongly admonish him, and the next time it happens, I'll be asking for a mistrial with prejudice. He's an experienced attorney, and he knows better.
Mr. Finger?
First of all, Your Honor, this was the subject of a motion. I'm well aware of that, and the court left the door open.
For me, not for you.
My understanding of
You should have come and asked for reconsideration. You did on the one motion, and in fact, I granted your motion for reconsideration.
That was not our motion.
Excuse me. I did. I granted.
We did not move
That
to
was
reconsider.
their motion.
We have not filed any
Forgive me.
motions to reconsider in this case.
That was their motion for reconsideration, which I denied. But I said I denied it, or I indicated a bias towards denial is what I did. Held it open with a bias towards denial. Why would you think that that made it okay for you without any advance notice to bring this matter before the jury? I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, well, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're
Grounds for a mistrial is what he was about to say.
Yeah, grounds for dismissal with prejudice.
Which is the crown jewel, by the way. I guess for anybody listening who don't know what we're talking about, there's two ways that a judge can dismiss a case, and he can dismiss it for a number of different reasons. If a judge just decides like this case is over because it's just so clear one side or the other is just out of line, and so there's one which is dismissed with prejudice, which means you can't try it again. It's over. Like the charges are dropped and you cannot bring the charges again. But then there's dismissed without prejudice,
which means they can bring it right back.
Which means there's some conditions into which they can bring the charges again. So that's the thing about dismissal. It's either really good for Rittenhouse or it's really bad for him. Like it's one of those things where, I mean, a mistrial would be great if it meant it was the end of the case, but a mistrial where they're allowed to bring the charges again basically means the prosecutor gets another try, and it might not go as well for the defense next time. Like that's so that's really what everyone's watching and waiting for here.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Yes.
We filed an other acts motion on this exact issue because in my mind, and I argued this, it is identical to what was going on the night of August 25th, in the sense that the defendant was using this exact same weapon. He was using it in a manner to try and protect property.
No, he wasn't.
Your Honor, with all due respect,
I'm not going to rehash the motion. That's absolutely untrue. No. Your arguments of record, my comments are of record, and why I ruled as I did is of record. There's nothing that I heard in this trial to suggest anything's changed, even if you're correct in your assumption that you know more than I did at the time. You should have come to the court and say, I want to go into this. Why you would think that you could go into it without any advance notice to the court, I don't understand that. And as the defense is pointing out, you're an experienced trial lawyer, and this should not have been gone into.
Your Honor, there have been things in this case, testimony in this case, that I believe opens the door to this. For example, the defense has introduced evidence that the defendant pointed a gun at a man wearing yellow pants because that person was on a car on the car source lot. Now, there's no justification that I can think of why the defendant would point that gun at someone. The defendant has just testified this morning that he agreed with that person in the yellow pants, that he pointed the gun at him. He said, I was joking when I said that to the guy in the yellow pants, but he said He's acknowledged that he told the person in the yellow pants, yeah, you're right. I did point a gun at you when you were sitting on a car.
He said, I did. That's what he
Exactly.
testified.
So he's agreeing. May I finish, please? I'd like to have a chance to make a record if I could, without being interrupted, if that's okay. He has
He
mentioned
talks to everyone like they're a
that
child.
he's
I've noticed.
acknowledged that he's used this.
He's really concerned about the recorder
also
getting
just
everything written
acknowledged
down.
that he knows he can't do that. I am attempting to impeach him now with the prior August 10th incident, 15 days prior, involving the same gun, where he is threatening to use that gun to protect property. It
He didn't
goes.
have the gun. They already went over that.
Your Honor, he is saying he wished he did so he could shoot people.
You know, there's a lot of difference between commenting about something when you haven't got a gun and threatening someone when you do.
You know, it's interesting, Your Honor, because the entire defense theory.
Got two guns right here, buddy.
Who was unarmed.
You tell me what the defense theory of the case is. I want.
May I
Look,
respond to what you just said, Your Honor? I'd like to respond to what you just said.
Oh, that face right
I apologize, Madam Court Reporter, but I'd like to try and make a record.
Oh, we got a facepalm
Anyone
from
interrupt me if that's okay.
Shafak.
Dude, that's what everyone feels like when they listen to this guy drone on like this.
They're cringing for him that he's
he
doing
has
this.
no ability to carry out. So, to your point, Your Honor, you're arguing
I think
that
Binger's
this
strategy
August
was
10th
just to
incident,
bore
one
Rittenhouse
aspect of
so
why you
much
don't
that he
believe it's
finally was
relevant
just like,
is the
okay, I'm
defendant
guilty.
Didn't have the gun with him.
Just take me to prison. I
This
can't listen
case
to this
is about
anymore.
someone who didn't have a weapon, and yet the jury is being told because of those threats, that means the defendant has to defend himself. So, with all due respect, Your Honor, mere verbal threats have already been shown to this jury and used as a basis
Did
for
his pen just
someone's
fly off?
subsequent actions.
Did it just see
I
that?
am attempting basis.
Watch this.
Have already been
It
shown
does,
to the
yeah.
jury and used as
Right
a
into the
basis
jacket.
for someone's
Oh,
subsequent
but
actions.
look at the guy
I
And
am
in
behind
his
him.
mind, he
with
knows
the
he did,
defendant.
but he's just like
Is that-
maintained.
Use his mere
That's one of the
verbal
witnesses.
threat on
He's
That's the
asleep.
video
That's
expert.
Dr. Black.
15
That's
days
Dr.
prior
Black.
that he's going to shoot shoplifters with his AR-15.
He's got to be on his phone or
Impeach
something.
The defendant.
Yeah, dude,
I-
everyone in
you
there's
see
on their
people
phone.
behind him. They're looking
Ask the
down.
forbearance
No,
to do
they're
that.
praying. They think it's church.
I apologize, Your Honor. You're right. I probably should
Wait,
have brought
this
this
isn't
to
a
your
church?
attention earlier.
It looks just
I
like
may have
one.
misunderstood your ruling.
The pews?
He's preaching.
I thought your ruling was if the evidence in this
Why is
case
he looking at the congregation?
made that more relevant, you would admit it or at least consider it it's an admittance. I believe, based on the evidence that we've heard, and
All right,
more
come
specifically,
on.
exactly what the defendant said earlier about admitting pointing a gun at someone who was merely jumping or sitting on a car, that the door is
Well,
open now.
In his
the
testimony, he
testimony.
admitted, but he said
And I
he was
continue
lying
to believe
because he just
that
wanted
his
to
state of
get over with
mind
the
Yeah,
confrontation.
he said he was exaggerating, being sarcastic.
is the core of this case. That was the basis for my motion. You were
Well, he
strongly
should have just
inclined
kept his
against
mouth
it. I
shut and walked
understand
away.
It's
that.
the longest
But
play
now
of
we're
the
in
game.
the middle of trial, and there's been a lot of evidence that's come in.
The
that I
longest
think
drive
makes this relevant.
Or-
of this
So I'm
quarter.
attempting to
Or
impeach.
even then, the guy was
On his-
chill about it when he
I
said it.
believe I'm entitled.
He's like,
to
"Yeah, you
impeach the
pointed a
defendant
gun at me earlier."
on
I'm
his
like, I
beliefs
would've been
and on
like,
his statements.
me? No, man.
His beliefs.
You're thinking about someone else. I didn't do it.
Oh,
His statements to Your Honor, because he just said, can't use deadly force, can't threaten to use deadly force to protect property. So now I'm impeaching him on that.
Your Honor, the court has seen no reason to change its ruling. And just so this record is clear, in spite of the lengthy statement by Mr. Binger, before we started today, the court specifically stated in Mr. Binger's presence, there's been nothing to have me change any of my rulings. There have been numerous occasions during this trial where they've opened the door. The one time when they're going into Mr. Rosenbaum's prior reason he doesn't like guns. And I said something, I whispered in Mr. Krause's ear, it's because of the prior convictions. Please stop. And he did. He knows if you're going to go
Should have let him keep going.
been excluded in a pretrial order, you better ask the court, you better get permission. This is ridiculous.
You know,
It wasn't excluded, Your Honor.
Good
you know why
finish.
it was excluded in the first place? Because it was propensity evidence. That is exactly what 90404 is designed to prevent. You're talking about his attitudes. His attitude is he wants to shoot people. Now, I've admitted that kind of evidence in other trials when it's been appropriate. I didn't admit it in this case because to me, what I've heard in this trial, and by the way, Mr. Richards absolutely correctly points out that just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
defense testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so.
So to Chris's point, he's doing it on
That's number
purpose
one.
because he just wants to get it
Number
in
two.
there, and he'll take the slap on the wrist afterwards.
I
Yep.
said at the time that I made that ruling, and I'll repeat again now for you.
Because why not do it if you're going
I
to get
see
away
no
with it?
similarity.
And he does.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is all just, the judge is blowing hot air, but at the end of the day,
yeah.
nothing happened.
So that you
Yeah,
can take
yeah.
fire
In the
rounds
end, he didn't declare anything.
thought to be shot.
Hmm.
And the incidents in these cases, which are not.
All right, what do y'all
there's
think? Y'all want to
nothing
finish
in
this
your
out? Or?
case that suggests-
No, he got to. He said don't be brazen.
Okay, so we got it. So by the way, for people who are listening who don't know, the media has decided to also aim its guns at the judge, and this is their reasoning for that. So if Rittenhouse gets acquitted, they're going to blame the judge for it.
Well, let's be honest. Since the pre-trial, they probably started aiming their guns because of what he wouldn't allow. It had the appearance of bias.
Yeah, before the
He
trial
wouldn't-
even started, they were.
He wouldn't let them call them victims, which they've done several times.
Well, I think the defense messed that up and slipped that first.
Yeah, they're the
should've
ones that they did
objected,
it
yeah.
first.
Yeah.
But
But let's not forget that he talks like this. And
oops, he's signaling to Rittenhouse. He's saying, "I got you, buddy. We're okay."
And also his ringtone. Did you guys catch that?
oh
Yeah, I
my
did.
gosh. Imagine be proud to be American.
I'm proud to
It's
be
because
That's a
Trump used it.
right-wing dog whistle.
Yeah.
Anything patriotic is a right-wing dog whistle.
Yeah. What was it? I guess Paul Johnson said the defense rests. They got 2 more witnesses to call. No, today they're done.
Yeah, they
The
rested today.
defense-
Yeah.
They rested today, and then they had the rebuttal today. They're done. They're just the prosecution's now settling on what they're going to finalize their charges for with all the evidence. They're gonna submit that tonight.
Without, by the way, a self-defense expert testifying. They never called a self-defense expert as a witness, or not a witness, but for their testimony, for their legal opinion about what happened. And if this is as slam dunk as everybody says, why didn't they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because of what the prosecution would be allowed to do if they did.
So I think the judge has his hands tied. He can't just say, the evidence is overwhelming. I'm dismissing this case right now. Like politically, he has his hand tied. He has to let this go to jury. And he's going to do his best not to declare a mistrial because he wants the jury to decide. That way, the decision is considered just. It went through the process. There was due process. And that's the answer. So anything except that is going to make either one of these political sides very angry.
I think I disagree. I think a political side is going to be angry regardless. You already said it. The jury's probably already predispositioned. Someone's going to claim it.
But it's angry with a taste of legitimacy. You know what I mean? Anything but the jury acquittal would seem illegitimate.
Yeah. No, I mean, but unfortunately, maybe there will be. So, as someone pointed out before, if you have with these flags, even if it doesn't get dismissed, they can be setting it up for an appeal because of all of these objections raised, because he did potentially poison the jury when he should not have been able to do that. Mm-hmm. And like you said, the jury can't just forget this. They're going to try to tell him, hey, don't admit that to evidence, but they've already been poisoned. So it has a potential for appeal.
Hey guys, do y'all want to watch?
Which is less than ideal, but
right,
better than nothing.
Do y'all want to watch The View covering the Rittenhouse trial? Let's watch it.
The View?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is gonna hurt. Go ahead.
Yeah, come on. Let's check it out. I think this could be funny.
Sustained.
and high at the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
I turn it off. I've had
Let's
enough.
see what these lovely ladies have to say about
He
it.
was just acting in self-defense when he brandished an AR-15 style rifle at a Black Lives Matter protest before shooting 3 people and killing 2 of them.
I don't think they know what brandished means.
Mr. Rosenbaum was now running.
Oh, they're gonna make fun of him for crying.
Right side.
The View.
And I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski. And there were.
What do you think Meghan McCain's gonna do? Think she's gonna stick up for him, or
Every single one on the View will.
People right there.
That's what makes me worried about a bunch of women on the jury. Women watch The View.
People
Let's get a glimpse of what they're thinking.
And I just was trying to get to the police running down Sheridan Road.
And you say I'm trying to get to the police. Why were you trying to get to the police?
So I didn't do anything wrong. I defended myself.
Oh, baloney.
Oh, they included the defendant itself.
Oh, baloney.
What did you think of the
Fair
testimony?
share of baloney, to be honest.
But with the rest of you,
Well, he goes across.
yeah.
I mean, from what I'm gleaning from this case, the
she's
guy
saying-
goes across state lines with an AR-15.
You don't know shit about this case if that's what you're
State
reading across
lines,
the
state
case.
lines.
to
Dude,
defend
hey,
himself
wait a
against
second,
what?
wait a second. Do you see her doing this before she starts talking? How she's looking down? Right now, she's reading the memo that they handed her about what she's gonna say. So
Yeah,
this is where she gets what she's gonna say, and she's gonna make it sound like she
Well,
thought
he
of it.
goes across. I mean, from what I'm gleaning from this case, the guy goes across state lines with an AR-15.
What I'm
with
gleaning
his
from this
mother
report
and some
that I
other
have here.
idiot in
Yeah.
the car to defend
From this
himself against what?
non-fact.
Having a
From the
protest
lines
in
that the
state,
producer
and he
handed me.
takes it upon himself to go there, and then he says it's self-defense. No, and that acting job of the crying, I can't even look at it.
Well, this is the
That is one of the worst acting
Yes.
jobs I've ever seen.
well, this is the problem with self-deputizing regular
Sick.
citizens. If you want to defend something, or you need to be trained, and you need to go be
was.
in law enforcement, or you need to be in the military. It is not up to
He
the
had a lot of discipline for a
take it upon
17-year-old kid.
themselves to arm themselves with an AR-15 of all weapons. And
Oh my
go somewhere
gosh.
where
They are
there's
15.
a lot of people and there's stuff going on that's not going to end well. It's the same reason why when we look at Texas and these abortion laws and everything, I do not right now in this day and age trust
I'm
my
gonna throw
fellow
my Texas
citizen
hat.
to arm up and decide what I'm doing right or wrong. Do not empower people that way.
And there's 2 cases currently going on: the Rittenhouse case and the Ahmaud Arbery case, where regular citizens, private citizens, took it upon themselves to act like vigilantes. The ones that and people.
This is what
ended
they'll be
up
saying about
dead.
Batman. They would be
He's,
against Batman.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Batman had no right to be there with a fire
There's
extinguisher.
a lot of
Batman's
people
just a
who had
vigilante.
visceral reaction,
Only the police
seeing
need to
him
be doing
testify.
these
And
things.
obviously they
Dude,
put
they could
him on
take
the-
this clip,
on
put it
the
in a
stand
Batman movie,
to
replace
emote
Rittenhouse
and
with
to do
Batman, and
this.
then don't change
And I think
anything
people
else.
have had a
and it
reaction
would
about
work.
this because he hasn't shown that level of remorse in public about the killings. But look, just one thing I want to say. There was a 12-year-old black kid named Tamir Rice
Okay, all
who
right.
got shot.
So they're done. That's all they. That's probably. That's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
all.
Now
That's
they're
probably
playing
it.
the race angle, which actually has nothing to do with the trial.
I love The View.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to go.
It's
throw
it's a
up somewhere.
play.
Do you watch
It's-
it every day, Chris?
It's a play. It's like a play where the actors think it's real.
The audience think it's real too.
The audience are they're the trained audience, where they have the light clap. That's brilliant.
Well, do they actually have a live audience anymore, or is it just a soundbite? Because I'm pretty sure the people who follow
Laugh
them
track.
would be,
No, a
would
clap
be
track.
COVID aware to not go there.
Yeah, they probably the studios probably just have an audience in one room, and they're not actually watching the show. They're just watching a sign that says laugh or applaud, or and then they just apply that over all the shows. It saves a lot of money.
Yeah, no,
I love
it's.
The View.
Oh my gosh, that was gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they can brazenly lie, and the thing is half the time I don't know if they know they're lying. That's the
No.
propaganda problem, is that they're just smelling
Yeah.
each other's farts, and whoever farted first, they're just
Yeah.
farting it out.
The
They're
vast
refarting.
majority of them haven't watched the videos.
Yeah.
No, I mean
at the risk-
most people haven't watched the trial, and I'm not surprised. And most people who have seen who say that they've seen the video have seen the CNN cut that doesn't show, how he was hit in the head while he was running away. They just show he's already on the ground shooting at people.
Yeah, how did he get there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they tried to insert race in there, like they said, but if you know the actual case, it was a white kid shooting white people, so they mentioned that he was at a BLM riot, and they don't actually come out and call him a white supremacist, but that's baked in there. They try to find ways to sneak that in there.
Actually, I feel like
the only person who's outright called him that is the current president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well,
I feel like the black people were smart though, because like not a single black person was like, I'm not going anywhere near that shit. No.
What? The white people are going to do our fighting for us? Okay.
Yeah, you go die, cracker.
Yeah, see how you like it.
Finally, there were people on standby with clubs and pipes, as a lot of people failed to realize. I mean, a lot of the focus on Gage.
Yeah. Hell no.
They were just there, they were just walking, fast along the same route.
Yeah, the guy,
they weren't chasing or pursuing.
Yeah, the one guy who said the N-word was, someone who Rittenhouse killed. Like Rittenhouse killed the guy who said the N-word. So shouldn't they be sticking up for him, right?
Yeah, no, and it was interesting.
He's a hero.
And I'll admit, when I was watching these, the initial riots that were happening, there were a lot of people who were, during the day it's peaceful. It's like, okay, sure, but once the lights go down, you have all these crazies. And so they were talking about these militia members, these right-wing extremists who were counter-protesting, and I thought they were counter-protesters. One night I did see that it was like a whole group of libertarian, protesters who were just there to march with them. They're like, yeah, fuck the police. We're here with you. And they marched alongside them. They were dressed in the same, as they called it, paramilitary outfits, but they were wearing, don't step on Sneck and stuff like that. So, people got along and they were fine with each other. I think there was some tension raised a little later because it was probably the soy boy liberals who were allies of black people, but didn't like right-wing freedoms or guns. So that they were the ones who probably propagated that problem.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's pretty interesting. The people Kyle killed and disfigured were all Jacob Blake.
If only Jacob Blake were alive today to comment on this.
Yeah. Jacob Blake was the weapons of mass destruction here. Where is Jacob Blake anyway? Why don't they wheel him in front of the cameras?
He has nothing to do with the trial.
But
could
he's
ask
been mentioned
Jacob
so
Blake
many
for
times.
his take about it.
I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't heard of any, interviews with
that guy's like
mainstream media about this. From him.
He can't walk anymore, but he's like, all my charges were dropped, so I'm just gonna shut up.
Yeah, because
interesting.
People were like, oh man, he just wanted to get in the car with his kids. Have you heard that? Have you heard that? Jacob Blake, who was shot because he was wanting to get in the car with his kids.
It was the police were called there because he was domestic. Yeah, it was a domestic dispute, and he was trying to abduct the kids. So it was just like fucked up all around.
Yeah.
All right. So in my mind, the best part of the trial was Gage Grosenkurtz when he hit. To me, that was the best part of the trial. Where they got the one guy who survived the massacre, the one guy that he let live. He said, "No, please don't kill me." He said, "I won't kill you," and he just like shoots his arm so he'll remember next time. And then he goes off.
He racked the gun. It threatened him a little extra beforehand. I think he thought like you rack an AR-15 like a shotgun. Like that's what he did. He had no idea how an AR-15 works.
Rittenhouse put it up to his head and pulled the trigger. Click. Next time, Gage. Yeah. So
Gage heroically tried to run away, and in the midst of his running away, and he just happened to be running like this.
Yeah. He decided he runs like this.
Yeah.
I know what you're thinking, Gage. Did I fire 8 shots or 30? Well, do you feel lucky?
I lost count in all the excitement. Yeah. I shot so many black people up until this point. Maybe I'll kill a white kid this time.
So Gage was really fun because he is just like lie after lie, and the defense caught him in every single one. My favorite personally was like he racked the gun. It's like, wait, it's an AR-15. You would see him do that very obviously. He did not, but nobody on the jury knows that, and the defense today kind of.
I think the defense even knows that.
Yeah.
I need to get a prop to just demonstrate what I'm talking about?
I don't know. That's up to you, man. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys keep talking.
You're the one doxing your own arsenal.
So Gage was, so for people who don't know like what we're talking about, he's the guy who got his arm blown off at the very end, and he is called to testify by the prosecution. And he's on the stand for like over 2 hours, like most of the day he's on the stand. And his defense, I guess I shouldn't call it his defense, his story that he worked out with the prosecution on what he was going to tell the world about what happened that night is essentially, and help me out if I'm missing anything here. His story was that he was an EMT who just had a felony charge, no big deal. And he was at the protest because he wanted to help people. He wanted to be an EMT for people there and just help people who get hurt. And, there were shots fired and he didn't know where they were coming from. And so he saw Rittenhouse, and at first he was concerned about his safety. So he tries to run over to see if he can make him safe. And then while he's going over there, he realizes that he's the active shooter and that he can stop him. And so he tries to go up to him. By the way, he hasn't mentioned, I think, by this point that he had a gun. So he runs up to him, and he was going to have his gun out, I guess, to de-escalate the situation. And they asked him, why didn't you shoot him? Because I'm not that kind of person. He's just not the kind of person who would shoot anybody. So he didn't shoot him. And then he saw Rittenhouse, decide to re-rack his gun as a way of saying, like, I've decided I'm going to murder your ass. And then he shoots. And, Gage saw his life flash before his eyes, and, his arm got shot off, vaporized, as he called it. And then Rittenhouse stormed away into the night. How'd I do? Did I miss anything?
Just a few minor details. He did say he did let slip. Oh, no. You're talking about the main story.
His story. I'm talking about his story. We're not going into the cross yet.
No. No. His story was that he did aim at him and tried to fire, and then he had to re-rack to prepare to kill him.
Are we ready for a demonstration on how that's nonsense?
Okay,
yes.
should we
that I recognize your Vortex Gen 1 reflex sight with a 3x flip?
I'm gonna let these guys do all of the talk. The gun.
Right. Safety talk. There's no round in the chamber, just so we're all clear. I'm not handling a live gun. So I'm guessing what the prosecution's trying to say is he racked the gun like a shotgun, like that, which is not how an AR works. So if Kyle were to actually rack his gun, he would have to take his hand off the guard, pull this back, which opens the bolt, which would
I'm trying to get you the bigger one.
Hurry up, Chris.
I'm trying to make you the biggest one. There we go.
So in order to, if the gun jammed, or if he was really trying to be threatening and rack the gun, what he would have to do is take his hand, grab the charging handle behind the optics, pull it, which would open the chamber, which would let out the jammed round or the live round, let go, and then re-shoulder the weapon. Now, he wouldn't do it like I did. He'd just do that. But it's a very deliberate movement you would notice on the camera. And if you want to play the video and show how he doesn't do it, that would be great.
That's if y'all could help me with that. Yeah, because I want to find the footage, because we can show and like we can talk about what he's actually trying to do. Ironically, the best place to go is our show. Because I've looked for just the raw footage, but now that the trial's out, it's so hard to find any footage that isn't just buried within all of the.
Just do Kyle shooting Gage. No, not Gage. Yeah, Gage.
No, here it is right here. No, I got it. Oops. Okay, let me go back to regular mode here. There we go. And other Nick is back where he belongs on the bottom because he's a bottom. All right, here we go.
Along with Kyle.
Okay, so I'm gonna mute us, but oh god, the video is so like freaking grainy. But anyway, I don't know if y'all can find like better footage. You might want to do that.
Enhance.
Zoom in and enhance.
Oh crap. Okay, so anyway, this isn't good enough footage. This footage isn't good enough. See if y'all can find something better.
They had like some HD video, but yeah, he gets up, he's right there. If the gun was jammed, he would have to do this. You would have seen that.
I think even in that video, you can see he always had his hand in the pistol grip, and I don't think his hand ever left the foregrip, the barrel cover.
No.
Yeah.
He turned it to the side and checked the action, but his hand was still his left hand was still in the front when he was doing that. Like the guy's hands were glued to his gun.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone had just tried to take it from him.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of time, especially like between Gage pausing and then lunging again. Like, you know, there's no time.
So the prosecution, what they were trying to do was they were trying to suggest to the jury that Rittenhouse was not in this like, you know, super hyper focused, reflexive, like I'm not even thinking about what I'm doing and I'm just like shooting. They wanted to plant the idea that he thought it through and he wasn't actually in any danger, but he decided to shoot him because that, you know, that makes it look worse, I guess, for his defense.
Yeah, the idea was behind the malfunction defense or accusation is that what he did try to fire when his hands were up. That's the whole point that they're trying to make.
So anyway, he builds this story about what really happened, and you know, which is just the only time I've ever seen anybody dig themselves into a hole that deep were the people who were actually accused of the crime. Like who were the people who I don't know if you've seen these like enough police interrogation videos. I've seen them a million times. I've seen just like millions of police interrogation videos of people who are just, they are caught dead to right. Like they are just guilty as fuck. And the police are interrogating them and they're just handing them a noose and watching them tie the knot and hang themselves with it. Just asking them question after question, having them dig themselves into a deeper hole. And then the only way that they basically their only choice, because they're cornered, is to make this story about what they were doing that day. And it's just so ridiculous that by the time and then they have no choice but to bring it all the way to trial. That looks a lot like what this guy did, but he wasn't even being accused of the crime. He was just a witness.
Dude, he sweat more than Kyle did on the stand.
Yeah. So the defense is cross-examined. I don't know what was more entertaining, watching him set this thing up after everybody saw the video, just going like, there's no way what he's saying is right. Or watching the cross-examination where they just embarrass him for 2 hours. So that's what we're about to watch, is this clip. I guess it's kind of like this is the clip where they finally get him to say like the worst, probably the worst thing that happened for the prosecution happened in this clip.
In the moment, I thought that the defendant was an active shooter.
Gage Grosskreutz, the only protester who was shot by Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year and lived to testify against
and lived. The boy who lived.
Oh, good. They're going to show it.
Because he heard gunshots come from his direction.
That's grainy too.
And then came face to face with Rittenhouse.
Oh, wait a minute. I know why. Because I got really bad audio.
He described the moments before the teenager shot him in the right arm with a semi-automatic rifle after killing 2 other people with it.
Defendant
fully semi-automatic.
Pointing his weapon.
Fully semi-automatic.
Put my hands in the air. Re-racking the weapon, in my mind, meant that the defendant pulled the trigger while my hands were in the air, but the gun didn't fire. So then by re-racking the weapon, I inferred that the defendant wasn't accepting my surrender.
Did you feel that he was going to point the gun and shoot at you again?
Yes.
Grosskreutz, a former paramedic, was armed with a handgun.
Remember, kids, if you shoot someone, make sure you kill them.
Yeah, you do bullshit like this.
Following Rittenhouse because he thought he might need to provide medical aid amid the chaos, and told jurors he did not intend to use his firearm.
Why didn't you take your own gun and shoot the defendant first?
I'm a shitty shot and wanted to make sure it was right there.
Not the kind of person that I am. It's not why I was out there. That's not why I was out there for 75 days prior to that. Why I spent my time, my money.
That's why he rechambered his rounds.
I didn't care for people. Tried to.
Yeah, they did find his rechambered round.
Oh, good. They
Kyle's.
do show it in this. Good.
Interaction.
Under cross-examination, Rittenhouse's attorney sought to establish that Grosskreutz had pursued the teen with intent to harm him, an assertion Grosskreutz denied.
You were chasing him with your gun? Yes?
No.
You didn't chase him down Sheridan Road, pulling your gun, chasing after him. That's a lie. You're saying that didn't happen?
I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but I wasn't chasing the defendant.
You were running after him?
No.
No. Okay.
But in a key moment, the attorney used a photo taken around the time it was fired to try to portray Grosskreutz as a threat, and got the witness to admit that his gun was pointed toward the teen when he was shot.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hand's down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Rittenhouse has been charged.
After all that. Yeah.
I rest my case. The defense rests.
Yeah. The defense ended it. Sorry, just real quick. Like, so what you just saw, like the defense ended this perfectly where, because if you watch the video, and in fact, we can do this real quick because I screwed it up.
Well, I'll say they had the cop who actually picked up the casings testify today. She didn't fire one single unfired round in 223 from Kyle's gun, but she did find one 40 Smith & Wesson, which is from her handgun, which means somebody with a handgun chambered their gun to make sure it was loaded. But Kyle never re-racked the weapon.
Yeah, so
and
let's
the
watch.
Only one we had, and Gage Grigowski had a 40.
Grigorskowicz, yeah, he did have a 40. So that means he intentionally took the gun out, chambered it again. It was already chambered to make sure it was loaded, because he didn't have any intent on killing him though. He just wanted to show him his handgun really up close.
So
to the
yeah,
temple.
let's watch. So watch Gage Grusenkurtz's hands when he gets up to him. So they're up like this, and then when he starts running, he turns his gun like that. So what the defense did, which was like the best, it was probably the best moment of the trial, was the defense was saying like, okay, so when you walked up to the victim, were you putting your hands up like this? And he goes, yes. And he says, did Rittenhouse shoot you when your hands were up like this? And he had to say no. And then he said, okay, so he didn't shoot you until this picture right here. Here's where your arm, like, what is he doing to your arm in this picture? And he goes, he's vaporizing my arm. And he says, okay, well, when your arm was vaporized, what was your gun doing? And, it was pointing, and you saw the picture, it was pointing at him. So basically, when you were doing this, he didn't shoot you, but when you were aiming the gun at his head, he did. And he said, correct. And that was the end of the cross-examination of him, which that was
done.
it.
Yeah.
That game over. Like if they'd have just started his whole testimony with that, they could have just stopped everything else. So, so that was what it just, I loved it. I mean, that whole thing was pretty amazing how the prosecution managed. They tried so hard to get some sort of story that would fit with what we saw.
In the prosecution's defense, they did do a decent job today with that expert and say, is it possible to have a malfunction where a non-live round has to be ejected? And it is. I pointed out before, if you have a failure to eject due to a non-well-oiled gun or, just a dirty gun or a bad powdered round, you could, or a combination of the three, you could have it to where you fire a round and then it doesn't eject. The bolt doesn't go back enough to fully eject and just reseats that one round, not even a double feed. And then the next time you pull the trigger could be a click. It's less likely to be a click, more like you don't feel it because it didn't actually fully cock back.
Yeah, the trigger the trigger might not reset. So
right.
you would just hit a wall.
Yeah, hey Nick. So do you want to address this argument brought up by Paul in here?
Yeah, but to me, like the point of the re-racking was it was an intimidation play. So if he had a jam and he was recharging the weapon, that's a legitimate movement. Like if he did do it, it's like, oh, my gun's jammed. I need to reload this so I can continue to protect myself. It wasn't a you feel lucky, punk.
It will in Rittenhouse the movie, or it's going to be.
I mean, it helps their idea that when his hands were up, he aimed and fired, and that's one of the things they kept trying to push with a lot of this was that he was aiming at Gage when his hands were up. That's one of their narrative they were trying to push was, he was trying to shoot Gage, but then couldn't.
Well, then why didn't he shoot again? Because he obviously Gage wasn't dead. He should have just kept going, right? If his intent was to kill him.
Well,
he stopped.
Right.
He stopped shooting as soon as he was disarmed.
And let's go ahead and bring up the thing that everybody except the jury knows. Gage, Goots, and Kurtz sued. Like, isn't he suing Kyle Rittenhouse for $10 million or something like that?
I think the jury does know that.
I think that fell through.
They weren't allowed to tell the jury that.
No, they pulled out. They asked him in front of the jury to kind of incentivize his testimony. You currently have a lawsuit out right now, don't you? And
but maybe they weren't.
The result of this lawsuit, they weren't going into the details. They said, wouldn't the result of your lawsuit possibly hinge on Kyle getting convicted?
But they weren't allowed to admit evidence that came from that suit, I guess.
Right.
That was
I go into the details of that suit.
Yeah.
Like his $10 million. I'm pretty sure a few people had one open against the city as well as Facebook for the right-wing militias.
So if Rittenhouse is acquitted, is Gage in trouble?
No, I don't think he's in trouble.
Criminally, you don't think there's anything there?
I don't think the prosecution's going to go after him.
No, I think it's hard. I think it's equally hard to. I think it's going to be really hard to argue that Gage wasn't set up by the crowd yelling, "Get him! He just shot somebody." I think he could easily prove that there is a reasonable doubt that his state of mind was there to stop an active shooter.
Yeah, but it's just the thing about the thing he could be in trouble for, I think, is the gun. Because wasn't there multiple instances where he would tell the police, like under oath, that he didn't have a gun at certain times during the night when he actually did?
Oh no, that's what they brought up. All his lawsuits withheld the information that he had a gun.
That he had a gun, and they're saying like, okay, here you testified twice about this, and both times you didn't mention that you had a gun this entire time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he kept trying to hide that he had a gun, and it didn't really come up until it was like the HD photos are right there with it in Kyle's face.
Yeah, that's not a gun.
Yeah.
That's
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to address Paul's comment, the OK argument one. I agree, Paul. But it could easily be argued that he was under a high stress situation and he has not properly trained for an extensive period of time with his weapon. So, I mean, I would believe that. A stovepipe or anything from his previous shot, he probably isn't. I mean, I believe that he isn't well enough to where to hear, the lack or not realize the wall. Especially under that situation when he's already in shock from the first time and he's basically fighting for his life. And he's probably just wondering why no go boom. But I am more inclined to believe that he had phenomenal trigger discipline and didn't shoot him, checked his gun, or just lowered it briefly. Because that was fast. That we have the benefit of looking at these freeze frames for almost an hour at a time. It feels, but these are happening in tenths of a second.
Yeah. So, what else you guys want to talk about?
I'm trying to find the video
I kind of want to ask you guys this. Do you think we'll see the president of the United States get sued during his term if he gets acquitted?
Yeah, but no one's going to hear about it.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I bet this.
You're talking about the guy who can order the FBI to raid someone who steals his daughter's diary,
or order the FBI to provide evidence that might hurt that said case, but not give all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that I have no proof that happened. Objection. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people who do that. There's probably a high rate of botched robberies with people who sue the president.
Yeah. All right, I got the video.
What we got here?
Come on. Is the audio coming?
Nope.
No.
Oh yes. It's just quiet.
Oh, it's coming through my mic.
We can't.
Give me just a second.
It's not coming through.
Oh, I do have a still from that. That I will share.
I'm gonna send it to the browser. That way, I can actually share the audio.
So let's see what else happened that's worth bringing up.
Well, the prosecution's testimony was so boring. The prosecution was falling asleep.
Oh, you finding is this the?
Look on the left.
Well, dude, I can't tell if he's falling asleep or if he's looking down. He could just be looking down.
I kid you not. When I first saw this, they started zooming in, so it stopped showing him. So it looked like he was just falling asleep. And I don't think this was the exact shot because later he does startle up. But it looked like he was.
All right, how's this?
Possessed a firearm.
Yes, so quiet. But
so in these documents that you are filing with courts, you are leaving out the fact that you had possessed a firearm when you were shot, right?
That is correct.
And
still turns.
So, to be fair, this is your testimony today, and how this case turns out has an impact on your ability to try to collect your $10 million, right?
That's correct.
So if he's convicted, if Mr. Rittenhouse is convicted, your chance of getting $10 million is better, right?
I'm not entirely sure how that plays out.
That fucking grin.
Think again,
bro. Why, bro?
Oh,
this guy clearly went to college.
For one semester.
I'm not quite sure how that plays out.
I love it. Yeah, I love it when when somebody on the stand is asked a question and they don't answer it, but everybody knows what the answer is. Like it's like everyone understands. Like we know you can't answer that truthfully, but yeah, we know what you're saying.
Yeah, do not pass go. Do not collect $10 million.
Yeah. So let's see. So there was that random Rain Man character who came on and who actually went around that night. And I guess what this guy does is he goes around taking pictures of, I guess, events and then share where there's going to be riots probably, and then shares that information with, all these different intelligence agencies just as a hobby. That was just the weirdest thing ever. And then he somehow got tied up in this thing.
No, he's a regular Peter Parker. He sells to the Daily Column. So
Yeah.
He'll sell them to the local newspapers. That's one of the things they tried to catch him on was, are you just trying to advertise that these pictures are for sale? That's why your testimony's here. You're trying to sell your business here.
Well, and then the best.
It's like he's your witness. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So the thing that he brought to the table was that Rosenbaum really did have a chain with him, because I think Rittenhouse was claiming that he saw Rosenbaum with a chain, And everybody was like, well, he was never found with a chain. Like the prosecution was saying that, he was just making that up because there was no evidence that he had a chain other than Rittenhouse saying he thought he saw one. And then this guy shows up out of the blue and says like, yeah, here's all these pictures I took that night. And here's one clearly showing him with a chain in his hand. So proven. So
yeah, I think everyone else was speculating or at least saying, yeah, they flipped over and burned a trailer and then he took the chain from it.
Yeah, so that's what he brought to the table. I'm trying to find a picture of him, but I don't know his name.
Granville was pretty great too.
He was the prosecution's witness, wasn't he?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the prosecution had a single, friendly witness.
No,
he was a defense's witness.
Are you sure?
Positive. I'm positive he was a defense witness.
Yeah,
I
want to say
like this case.
the prosecution,
they all seem
the
like
only
defense
one
witnesses.
remotely in favor was Gage, and then he just tripped over his own
collapse
ego.
Well, Gage's roommate, his testimony was pretty short.
Let's stop there. So let's stop there because that's something interesting that happened during the course of the trial. So let's find the tweet. Here, Nick, I'll kind of lay the groundwork if you can find the tweet.
Okay.
So Gage Gosenkurtz is the last thing that the defense asked him about during cross-examination is a tweet. It was a conversation that his roommate was having with somebody where he said that something that Gage told him when he was in the hospital was something that he was questioned about during the trial. And Nick is trying to dig up that actual conversation while I'm laying the groundwork. So during the trial, he said, is your roommate a guy named Jacob Marshall? Is Jacob Marshall in the courtroom today? And he actually was. He was sitting in the stands. Jacob Marshall says that you said this, quote, I just talked to Gage, to his only regret was not killing the kid and hesitating to pull the gun before emptying the entire mag into him. Coward. So, which is just really damning, accusation right there.
Mm-hmm.
If he's saying, because what Gage was saying is that he's a guy who would just never shoot anybody, and he pulled his gun out, but he never intended to harm him or anything like that. And this suggests that he really didn't shoot him just because he's a pussy. And that's why he didn't shoot him.
Yeah.
And so this is him saying, I wish I had killed him. And so they showed him this tweet and said, Gage, did you say this? Like, you're under oath. Did you say this to Jacob Marshall? And he said, no. So the trial ended. And then we started hearing through reports that Jacob Marshall he left during that line of questioning. He got up and left the courtroom while they were asking him about that. He was served a subpoena like immediately, and he was called to testify. And his testimony was the next day. And
it was like 30 seconds too.
It was a super quick testimony where it's like, were you his roommate? Yes. Did he say this to you? And he said no. So
no,
under oath, he said, no, I lied. He never said this. I was just trying to stick up for him. Which, and that's the bizarre thing about his story.
People on the internet were bullying me.
Yeah, people were bullying him. So the way he decided to stick up for him was by saying, he told me in confidence that he wished he had killed Rittenhouse. I don't know how that's sticking up for him. It's a little strange. I guess was Gage Grosskreutz getting a lot of hate for not killing him? Is that what he was getting hate for? Was pulling out his gun and not killing the white supremacist?
Dude, have you ever gotten into a social media argument?
No, of course not. Of course not.
Your IQ drops by 100 points, and when you got 98 to work with.
So anyway, very, very high chance that his roommate just committed perjury. But the truth is, if there's no recording of Gage ever saying this,
it's hearsay.
Then then basically you can get away with it. Who knows if he really said that? Who knows?
I mean, even if he did, even if he did, because they showed the original tweet in evidence when he was visiting him in the hospital. Even if he did, I would personally give him leniency of being angry and being under serious pain medication.
Yeah, I agree.
And I agree with Paul Johnson. He was probably trying to force a surrender. I would argue that he's either doing that or he was trying to subdue a perceived threat. The guy does seem scummy, And his background does concern me, though.
He's a guy who, to me, what he was doing was acting first and thinking second. I think he was a guy who was like, I'm in this like civil rights mob here. This guy's an active shooter. I can stop him. I have a gun. And that was kind of the end of his thought process while he was running up to Rittenhouse. That's kind of what he was seeing himself as, like, I'm the guy that could stop this white supremacist active shooter here. But it wasn't until he was actually standing in front of him. So when he was standing in front of him with the gun going like this, that was really his mind going like, Gage, what the fuck are you doing? and so then, he kind of like froze because he realized, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so that was, and I guess I don't think he really was aiming his gun to kill him. He was probably just like panicking because he realized he was in this situation where he was like, well, I'm not going to murder this guy, but I have a gun here. And so he was in the process of kind of like running away, or maybe like Paul's saying, force a surrender, maybe.
But
yeah, I would
from
agree.
Kyle's perspective, he has no idea about any of that thought process. It's all happening in a split second. All he sees is a gun in his head. From Kyle's perspective, he's justified.
Let's be very clear here. Kyle is being
even if
attacked by a mob.
Even if the thought entered the head, maybe he's surrendering. There's a gun at my head. If I'm wrong, I'm dead.
Okay, yeah, I'll just give this guy my gun, and then the rest of this riot will leave me alone.
Yeah, at 3 or more people just tried to kill me.
Yeah, and then this guy runs up to me with a gun and aims it in my direction. Like, yeah, he's lucky he didn't kill him.
Yeah, no, well, but I would disagree. I don't think Gage was trying to run away, because he had halted all his advancement when he put his hands up, and then he could have backed away if he wanted to get away. If he wanted to bob and weave, he could have ran to the side away, but he ran in towards his direction to the side as if he was trying to minimize the target area while still getting close to the guy with the rifle.
And this is after Kyle puts his gun down slightly, right?
Yeah, he saw an opening.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if he was thinking. I don't know if he was thinking on all cylinders.
I don't
think he.
We've been watching a lot of court speculation, but
sure. Sure.
But he
one thing for sure.
Him.
Any story you think of is better than the one he came up with. Go ahead.
If you're fleeing, you run away. You don't, especially if you've already started moving your body momentum back to stop your forward momentum. You run away, or maybe to the side. But you don't run towards his direction and to the side. That's just not natural.
I don't think he knew what he was doing either. I really don't know if he had planned out what he was going to do, because the defense may. I mean, I think the prosecution. I don't know if it's the prosecution who made this point or if somebody else did on the internet. I think it really was the prosecution, but they said, okay, if he was going to shoot at Rittenhouse, he wouldn't run up to him first. He would have just shot him from a ways off with the gun. Like, if you have a gun that shoots far away, why would you run up and use it first? Why wouldn't you just shoot it back where you are from a safe distance?
Yeah, they were saying 10, 25, 50 feet, whatever. No, he was going. So they had people on top of him. He stopped shortly because skateboard guy stopped the disarmament. He was probably counting on skateboard guy to grind his face and hold his gun down, and he was going to go help disarm him.
Okay. But then when he got to him, he realized that he was the only guy there. He was
the only guy there. Yeah. The other guy stumbled off, took the asphalt temperature challenge, and then he he was alone.
Yeah, Gage thought to himself, I'm going to be the guy that runs up while he's laying on the ground, and I'm going to point it to his head while the other guy is like pressing the gun on the ground, saying like, okay, now I've got the gun. You need to stop struggling.
Yeah.
So that the
that's completely believable still.
Yeah. Even if that's true, if all they were trying to do is take the gun away from him to force him to surrender, Kyle has no idea about that. From his perspective, if that gun gets off of him, they could easily turn it around on him.
Yeah, so that's kind of the shitty
why on
situation.
earth would you ever give up your gun?
No. Yeah. No, if someone tries to disarm you, that is what was it that the defense course says? If you have a gun involved in a physical altercation, it is an escalated to a deadly altercation if a gun is in play. So if you carry, you have to keep that in mind. So if someone tries to take your gun, it is now them trying to steal the deadly threat.
This is just in light of everything. It's like, yeah, it seems like he was kind of making this like half-assed attempt to like run off because he wasn't running directly at him. He kind of runs to the side.
And the way Gage describes it, it's like an anime movie where they have that like 30-second freeze frame where they're both thinking in their heads, "Oh my God, what's going to happen next?" But it's like this is all happening in half a second. Like,
well, with the adrenaline pumping, it could have felt like an eternity. Like if you stop, you stop and look, and then he sees an opening, go.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you're right.
He kind of hopped back. You even see him hop back. If he was wanting to run away, he continued to hop back, but he hopped back to lunge forward. There.
When he got to Kyle, he was in like a mob of 4 people or something. But then within just like a split second, he was all by himself. Like everybody else, this guy ran off. This guy was dying. This guy just kind of stopped running.
And maybe he saw in the periphery. He thought he was still had backup or whatever.
He's the only guy. I'm the guy with the gun, and like I think he kind of sidesteps as a way of I'm gonna keep moving, but I'm not quite sure. I don't think he was really thinking through what he was doing.
Look at this guy. He's the other guy. He's instantly T-posing. The guy behind Gage Gruskovich.
Yeah, doesn't get shot.
Instantly T-pose and steps back.
Going to the
line
right.
of sight.
Kyle, with the big club.
Kyle is even pointing at this guy at this point. The other guy at this point.
Yeah, so Kyle Rittenhouse could have just like ended this guy. If he was an active shooter, he could have just ended this guy right now, and he didn't do it.
You know what else was odd is the prosecution kept trying to say you didn't stop to see if any of these people were okay after you shot them. Like he has some kind of duty to do that. I think he was just trying to attack his credibility as a medic, but like you don't have a responsibility to help someone after you shot him. Like, especially if you're using deadly force, they're probably dead. Like there's nothing you can do for them. I thought it was a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, his only mistake that night, other than being there in the first place, was not, shooting to kill with this last one, huh?
Well, he put the gun down first.
He put the gun down and pulled it up. He overpulled.
Do you think he missed? Do you think he missed? Or
I think no, he definitely missed. He was not aiming for his bicep.
Was he
was a happy little accident.
So you want to go center of mass.
So you're saying Rittenhouse just kind of like squeezed one more bullet off, but he wasn't really aiming. He was just at the end. He was out of gas and just.
No, he went to aim, but he just pulled the gun. He aimed to Gage, and where he was leading him a little bit.
Yeah, but he led him too far, and
he overpulled, and
so Gage is lucky to be alive, dude.
Yeah,
because he could have been like Huber and just got one to the chest.
Yeah, so Huber's story with the whole trial was actually really short. It was mostly about like 60%. It was like 60% Rosenbaum, 30% Gage Gusenkurtz, and then then the rest of it, they spent a little bit of time on Huber, but it was really just that one lady who knew him, like his great aunt or something.
Well, they tried to bring
him as a kid, and he loved skateboarding.
They tried to bring her in as a testimony to his peaceful character, and then the defense had the jury leave. They had an objection, and they reminded the prosecution if they try to bring in character witnesses, they can bring in his past convictions. And then it comes up that he tried to strangle his sister and stab his brother and all got convicted.
What was this guy's first name?
Anthony Huber.
Yeah, so they brought his great aunt. Yeah, you're right. And once they realized, so that's basically what happens. That's why they were planning on having her on to stand a lot longer than that. But in the middle of the testimony, they realized if they asked her about him being this peaceful kid, that they could bring up his criminal record.
Yeah, the prosecution had the weakest case for the homicide of Anthony Huber because there was nothing they could bring up.
No, except that his great aunt loved him and he loved the skateboard.
And they tried to prove that no one actually grabbed the gun, but there was plenty of video evidence. They're like, DNA swab. Well, I mean,
then they played the video.
They played the video, and then they had that same DNA person say, yeah, so if it was a brief contact, it's possible that there wasn't any, right? Or if you didn't swab that area and didn't get that sample. It's like, yeah, if it's real brief, it might not leave it depending on the extent. And then they showed, Here's a video. Does it look like he was holding the gun? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So, Nick, you actually were you the one who told me what he did to like because he has two things on his record, and one of them was like holding a knife up to his brother to force him to clean the house or something, saying like I'm gonna fucking kill you if you don't clean the house or something like that. Like he has a history of threatening his family with a knife.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah, there was something he did. Yeah, because the jury went out of the room so that so that the defense could say, look, if you bring up this thing about him having a peaceful past, then this law allows us to get into his criminal background. And Huber has two violent I think charges or something, and one of them was like holy shit serious, where he like I said, I think he took a knife and threatened his brother.
Second degree recklessly endangering safety felony, a G charge dismissed. That one got away. But strangulation, suffocation felony, guilty plea, false imprisonment felony, guilty, battery, dismissed, disorderly conduct, dismissed, but read in, and then so
that is a huge rap sheet.
Yeah, he's got all these domestic abuse charges. He's not Mr. Peaceful, and the defense reminded him of that, and they just ended all the testimony for Huber.
Yeah, the defense wasn't allowed to bring this up in the trial because of relevance. The judge argued, because that's a big thing in trials. They try not to dig up too much of the pasts of people who are in the trial. The argument being like, well, just because you did some stuff in your past doesn't necessarily mean you did the same thing today, because it's a separate event.
Right.
The only exception is if somebody decides to, do kind of like a submit like character evidence about the person's character and why it would be unlikely or likely for them to have done something in a certain way.
And then the defense can bring up, counter arguments to their character, which is why they didn't do it for Rosenbaum, because then they'd find out that he's a child sex offender.
Yeah. So all three of these people had records. I think Gage was the only guy who basically had a weed. He got busted with weed, but that was
Gage didn't really have a record. He had.
They try to pull up. Hey, are you part of this revolutionary party that's speaking at all these BLM and Antifa rowdies?
Yeah, that was another weird thing where they tried to. Yeah, the defense tried to accuse him of being a member of this, I think, Antifa thing or some sort of like group. And he was like,
it was a straight up revolutionary group. Like they wanted a revolution. Not even, not Antifa, not BLM, just a subsect of that.
Boogaloo Boys on the other side of the aisle.
He said no, he's not a part of them, but he eventually admitted he's affiliated with them because he was speaking at their.
Yeah, he gave a speech, and they even quoted him, basically insinuating, "If you don't admit to this, we'll bring the evidence."
Paul's on a roll here. Yeah. Yeah, he what was it? He had the weed charge, who cares? But yeah, they're Boogaloo comrades, probably, not the Boogaloo Boys. So let's see what else happened.
Grandma.
Yeah, so that was another Grambo. So there was this old lady who was with them. Yeah. Well, I didn't know about this.
I didn't know about her until this trial.
Yeah.
So the defense seated this this old lady who was kind of with the group, and she was, I guess, the grandmother figure. Let's dig her up.
Yeah, one of her best statements was, a mirror of a lot of people at that time, where they're like, BLM, when the movement started, we were all for it. After the guy who couldn't breathe, we were on board, justice, Black Lives Matter. Yeah. But then they started burning things down, and we weren't for that. So once the riots started happening, we weren't on board with that.
And
so she decided to go help defend, businesses that were getting burnt down.
She also caught Rosenbaum threatening her as well, dropping the hard R at her as well, threatening to cut her heart out, and like all that was
And even she couldn't bring herself to say the N-word. What we really learned from this trial is that the N-word is more powerful than the F-word now. It's taken its place, not even close. You can now say the F-word in trials, no problem. But
but despite the alleged victim's race, it is still a very racially charged trial because of the events around the events that led up to this event.
Mr. Blake.
I mean, Jacob Blake.
So the reason that the defense called her up is that she was collaborating Rittenhouse's statement. And so the defense had this major theme that the protest was actually not that bad. There really wasn't that much chaos going on. What was really going on is these people came in with their guns, and that rose the tension of the gathering, and that made everybody uneasy and anxious, and that really they were looking for trouble, and that they weren't actually helping anybody. They were just causing trouble. So her story about what was going on that day kind of bolsters the defense, because what she was basically saying was what the defense is trying to say, that this was actually a very chaotic scene where there was lots of fires and damage, and just, it was a very dangerous place to be, and that what they were really doing was just defending property. They weren't trying to intimidate or do anything. The only intimidating they were trying to do was to prevent people from burning down their businesses and stuff like that. So that's why they brought her on. And anyway, that's because
scary people with big guns. She's like, no, I got my 380.
Yeah. So what she really added, like, for the defense, I guess, was that, I mean, I don't remember anything the prosecution really threw at her that really stuck.
The prosecution kept trying to group Kyle with this group that was causing trouble, and they kept trying to poke at the group. And then that was one of the first outbursts by the judge, saying the group isn't on trial here. It's Kyle who's on trial. The group isn't on trial. Just because one person said fuck around and find out, the group isn't on trial. She brings a grandma appeal to the group, not just a bunch of young white males with nothing better to do who may or may not have military training, playing, LARPing in front of places, hoping to play some live action COD. So she gave a new face to that group.
Yeah. So another thing that was kind of interesting that came up through the course of the trial was that apparently the owners of CarSource need to lawyer up, because that was another thing that what the prosecution was trying to argue was that the owners of CarSource asked these people to come and defend their building with guns, which would have put you in a lot of legal trouble, probably. I couldn't tell you exactly how, but I'm sure if you hire your own security, unless they're private security guards that have special, like, permission from the government to be security guards, I don't think other than that you're allowed to invite your own, group of enforcers. And so these guys from CarSource came up, and they were immediately like, and also important to note that they weren't white. They were actually like these Middle Eastern guys, which also flies against the narrative that these are white supremacists. They were actually defending some Middle Easterners, car, ports, which is not what you would expect if these were like white supremacist militia. You wouldn't expect them to be doing something like this. But anyway, they were on the stand, and they said, we did not hire anybody to come, we did not tell anybody to come with the guns. Like, they just pretended that they showed up, and they're like, okay, why are you here in the picture with them? If you didn't ask them to come to your car building, why are you here posing with them in the picture? And he's like, oh, I just thought that was really cool that they brought a bunch of guns, and I just wanted to get my picture taken with them, but I didn't affiliate with them at all. But then eventually they, Rittenhouse rats him out. I think Rittenhouse testifying was where it really came out that, yes, they did ask us, right? Wasn't he the one that really revealed that? Like, yes, they were asking us to come out.
It was, I want to say it was someone before Rittenhouse that also opened that can.
Well, the shady car dealers probably were covering their ass for insurance reasons and didn't want it to come out in trial that they invited these people here to avoid their insurance claims. So now they're probably lawyering up.
Well, yeah, when you hire private security, they have their own insurance through their organization to cover those kind of things. So hiring private security to guard your place of business without your insurance knowing adds a certain risk when you have an armed security force.
Yeah,
I guess.
But it, the idea plays to the defense, because if the car source people ask them to do it, then they're less likely to just be a roving, gang looking for trouble. What you got?
Oh, hey, so this is Grambo, her testimony that got everyone all riled up.
Oh, yeah.
Car and Black Lives Matter was screaming, and he was shouting, and Rosenbaum started shouting back at us that he's going to, pardon the judge for saying this and everybody else, he's going to kill us motherfuckers, motherfucking niggers, and cut our heads off.
Wow. Oh, dude, what's this commentary? Dude, there's 6 talking heads in there with her. I didn't know that. Get them out of there.
Sorry, it was the only clip I could find, but she's testifying that Rosenbaum said, "I'm going to kill you, motherfucking N-words, and cut your hearts out." And multiple people corroborated that testimony. So that's all evidence in the jury that Rosenbaum's going around being belligerent all night long.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's almost a step beyond belligerent. Belligerent saying, shoot me N-word, or just, getting up in people's faces and being antagonistic in general. That's kind of belligerent, but, outright threats.
Mm-hmm.
Rosenbaum just looked more and more and more like just a dangerous piece of shit villain by the end of the trial.
Well, the jury doesn't know this, but he just got out of a mental hospiel,
dude,
because he's got bipolar disorder.
No, it's because he wasn't in the new James Bond as Odd Job.
He was so upset.
He was too short for that role, even.
Yeah, that just more, and they brought his girlfriend on. That's another thing. They brought Rosenbaum's girlfriend on, I guess, to try to make Rosenbaum like a sympathetic kind of character. But her testimony was just so forgettable because it didn't really.
She's also like couldn't bump the rails. What hospital did he come from? She's trying to avoid bringing up, oh, it's a mental hospital. Oh, why is he at a mental hospital? Oh, well, he's got BPD and he's got depression and anger disorders, and that eventually opening the door to he's a 5-time convicted pedophile or whatever it is.
That's true. Her testimony also is when she slipped that he was on drugs, right?
That's right. So the jury does know he's bipolar, but I don't know what that means to the jury. To me, it means he's unstable.
Well, there were 2 people he was with, and were fine hanging out around him the whole time. And I think they have their own separate case going on with
the Zeminskis.
The Zeminskis.
So they're not testifying at all because I think Binger has a separate prosecution against them.
Yeah, and I mean, if I was a prosecution, I wouldn't want to cut a deal with these guys because let's be honest, I wouldn't want to cut the deal with them to get Kyle when they're almost just as guilty. I would want to put them away for antagonizing this. Besides, if it falls through, he just made a deal with people to testify on something that fell through when it's obvious that they're the antagonizers here, and he should really put them away.
Right. Yeah, they fired the first shot.
They did.
Like 2 seconds before Kyle turned around and shot Rosenbaum.
Dude, so help me find so one thing we didn't have when we did our pre-trial coverage was the only video we had of Rosenbaum was kind of that angle where it was on Rosenbaum's back and him chasing Rittenhouse to that kind of group of cars, but it was just so hard to tell what happened that really just like you see them running and then the shot. But over the course of the trial, more and more and more, dude, it turns out, probably the Russians were even filming him that night. Like there was all these different camera angles that came out. And the best one was that enhanced footage that came from the drone. Dude, try to help me find that. Cause dude, you watch that and it shows everything.
The thing I would pay to be able to see that drone screenshot in a decent resolution, because When I saw them present that today in the stills with no context because they couldn't testify to their own evidence submission, well, it looked, as someone else pointed out, like a Rorschach. I couldn't make out what anything was going on, even though it was zoomed in and enhanced. I get the pinch argument and how silly it sounds. It almost sounds like the glove argument for this case. But the pinch and zoom argument is valid if you're only working with 30 pixels and you try to make 30 pixels into a 4K image.
Right.
It was even funny how the prosecution was like, "Oh, you'll see it better if it's on this 4K TV."
But it ended up just being like you just see a black blob in front of a pixelated Kyle.
Yeah. So they after Rittenhouse got off the stand, they spent the entire rest of the trial arguing about this one picture that they were about to show and how the software may be distorting it. And they go back and forth, and then they show the picture y'all are talking about, and you can't even tell what's going on in it.
It's so for those who don't know, it's a well, we could show this, then I'll get into what that actual image was.
So yeah, this was the best footage that came out about this whole the Rosenbaum thing. It just like surprised there was also a drone there that night. And it captured this footage, and this was probably the best footage. So here's Kyle. He sees him. So it looks like, so at this point in the video, like before we play, Kyle has actually turned around. Rosenbaum chased him halfway through the parking lot. Kyle turns around to show him his gun, hoping that if he points his gun at him clear the hip, that Rosenbaum will see the gun and back off. But he doesn't. He keeps running. And that's where this video begins. And you can even see Kyle slow down, thinking that he's not chasing him anymore. And then he turns to look over his shoulder. See? And he sees him still running. And so he sprints even more. Boom. And then he's toast. Rosenbaum dives at some point to try to get the gun from him. So here's the thing.
It's hard to tell if he grabbed the gun, but you have multiple people corroborating that, yes, he was indeed going for the barrel of the gun. And Kyle even says himself he grabbed the barrel of the gun. So like at that point, it's like, fuck, pull the trigger.
Yeah. No, yeah, at that point, yes. But according to Kyle's testimony and some other people's testimony, I mean, you look, he's trying to squeeze between vehicles, so you're naturally going to slow down to do so. But then he said he slowed down because he saw the mob on the other side, and naturally they're not going to be friendly to him.
Oh yeah, you're right.
One guy in the car.
You're right. He gets to this part. He sees all these people lining up
who were smashing windows moments before. As other,
and he gets to this moment, he's like, "Crap, what do I do?" And he turns around. Rosenbaum is still chasing him, and they actually had one of their like science-y talking head people who worked for the state. They basically proved that Rosenbaum either touched the barrel or his hand was at least close enough to the barrel that it left residue. Like they found gunpowder like singes basically on his finger.
Yeah. So the unburnt gunpowder. Yeah. So the unburnt soot that comes like when you're really close to the gun, there's going to be unburned gunpowder. It's going to leave soot on the skin if you're that close. Well, the front part of Rosenbaum's hand had nothing on it, and then the soot started, which means his hand was going over the barrel.
I think it was either reversed. On the barrel. I think it was over every part but his pinky area. So like it showed that he was reaching, but it didn't. It was not here, but it was all here. So if his hand was far back enough, it'd be on his whole hand. But it was not here. So it was almost as if the rest of his hand was shielding, or the barrel was almost here.
The pattern that it left on his hand strongly suggests that he was either touching it or was at least very, very close to touching it. Close enough that it would leave that kind of pattern on his hand.
I mean, and he shot through his hand too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So he turns around.
That was the first shot too. Was through his hand.
Yeah.
Well,
no, they argue that the first shot was to the pelvis, second shot to his hand. That's the argument.
Yeah. So he shot him 4 times, and so the prosecution tried to say, well, he shot him in the back, therefore he couldn't have been charging him. But then this video comes out, and you notice how they just completely stopped saying that. Like at the start of the trial, they said we have evidence that he actually shot Rosenbaum in the back, suggesting he was running away. But then as more and more and more video comes out, it's just so not, there's just no way that happened.
Well, then you see the coroner picture. They're like, yeah, it's from the back to the front in a downward fashion. It's right here going this way. If he was lunging at him and lower than him, that would explain that. So they're saying it grazed his head this way, but that's not from the back. It's not from the back as you traditionally think.
And this speaks a lot. Go ahead.
He's lunging at him. So the reason the bullets are hitting him that way is because he's like horizontal towards him, not because his back is facing him. And Kyle is in just a quick succession 4 rounds. It's not there's no pause in between these. This is one volley. And as he's falling, the rounds progressively get more towards his back as he hits the ground.
Yeah, and they were saying they kept emphasizing, oh, it was his 4th shot. He was no longer a threat. At that point, the kid pulled the trigger 4 times. Let's be honest, he was probably not trained to do a sight reassessment with each shot. So he probably just pulled the trigger 4 times out of panic.
Yeah.
To stop the threat.
But this was important too, and this was brought up a lot. Look at the first stance that he's in. He's actually aiming the gun at Rosenbaum right now in the middle of the parking lot. And Rosenbaum keeps running at him, and Kyle then doesn't shoot him, but he turns around and keeps running, suggesting he's telling him, stop, 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 stop. Like warning him, I'm going to shoot you if you keep
He's yelling
running
friendly at this point, right?
And he makes the decision, I'm not going to kill him. I'm going to keep running. So basically he gave Rosenbaum just, I don't know how many outs. He was giving him so many outs where Rosenbaum could have just stopped chasing him, run away, and then he would have been alive.
Friendly was before he turned.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was as he was running away during the first segment.
And then the prosecution tried to say that this all started because he pointed the gun at him on the street.
That's so what happened is he went to I keep forgetting what they keep calling that suburban like vehicle, but there was a vehicle on fire where
Duramax.
What?
It was the Duramax is what they were calling it.
It's Rosenbaum was on the other side fixing his shirt or something. Kyle goes up with the fire extinguisher and what's his ass? The guy with the gun. The guy who's
Rosenbaum.
with Rosenbaum the whole time.
Zeminski, sorry.
Zeminski and his wife turn and take a step towards Kyle. Zeminski has a gun in his hand. And what they're trying to say is at that point, Kyle pointed a gun at Zeminski, and that's why Grosskreutz went after him. Or not Grosskreutz, sorry. Rosenbaum went after him. Rosenbaum went after him because he pointed a gun at Zeminski first. If that is the case, then yes, self-defense will be thrown out the window, and this will be a completely different case. Let's be honest, just holding a gun in your hand, it can be threatening. It is technically brandishing because it's not in a holster at that point, but he wasn't threatening and pointing it at him. According to even Kyle's testimony, he just had it in his hand at his side.
Mm-hmm.
He just walked towards him. He felt threatened, and then he backed away, and then suddenly Rosenbaum was coming at him from behind.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, guys, I actually found
prosecution's narrative is going to hold there.
I'm queuing up the FBI, the bird's eye footage, because this was another thing that came out during the trial that kind of illuminated everything that happened up until, because, before the trial started, the footage we had of Rosenbaum being shot, it started with him being chased. So the FBI surveillance video that came out, and they have this it looked like you're playing Call of Duty and you're in the AC-130 blowing up people. Is that except showing just a regular street corner?
Oh, the thermal imaging camera,
dude. That showed, it showed. Here, I'll get that queued up. Here it is, right here. Let's.
There were two. There was
text, but
one with the thermal camera, and one that eventually showed that enhanced footage that we saw just a moment ago. Okay.
So that's what the prosecution. Kyle, so by the way, the text, just real quick, the prosecutors were trying to say that Rittenhouse approached Rosenbaum first, or he was chasing him first. Like they were being really generous, but what they were talking about was basically this.
Keep going. I'll be right back.
Find the video here. If this video, okay, so here we go. This is showing. So person of interest 1, that's Rittenhouse, or that's Rosenbaum. Person of interest 2 is Rittenhouse. So you see, there's chasing him up across the lot. Chasing him. He's chasing him for a really long time, and then he kills him. So this first, they don't show you, but let me just, okay. So you can find other footage that happens before this, but if you look along this street here, the footage kind of follows Kyle Rittenhouse as he is walking down this street. And what this video kind of starts too late, in my opinion, because what it shows is Rosenbaum hanging around these cars. So Rosenbaum is hanging in these cars and Rittenhouse is walking down this street. Rosenbaum is already here. And then where this video starts is when, let me back up to where this video starts. I could probably find a better one, but I should have had this queued up before we started the show. But what the fuck do you want?
Yeah.
People? We're busy. So this was Rittenhouse right here. So before this happened, he was coming down this street, and Rosenbaum was hanging out in these cars here.
Well, even before that, it showed Rosenbaum and the Zeminskis walking down that street, and Rittenhouse was behind them.
Yeah.
Away by about 20 or so feet.
See this guy right here? That's Zeminski.
Is that Zeminski or the camera guy?
I think that might be McGinnis, right?
I think that's McGinnis.
There's no one else there because Zeminski was in the same parking lot behind him, and he shot the gun in the air.
No, Zeminski's at the sidewalk right now. He's halfway. Yeah. He is.
Remember, McGinnis has the charge that Kyle recklessly endangered him because he was following behind, but he put himself in that position.
Yeah. Zeminski is still, you see that black spot near the.
You think that's him right here?
No, down by the sidewalk.
This guy?
Yeah.
That's him?
Yeah. The white on the black spot. You see how it looks like a dark spot covering the sidewalk to the right. Up, left, down, left. That white spot on the black spot. That's
this guy right here.
And his wife.
Okay. Well, he had a gun.
The dark is not body heat. It's cold. So the white is body heat. Mm-hmm. This is white hot.
Okay. So for people who don't know what we're talking about, believe it or not, the first shot that happened in this incident, the first person to shoot his gun was not actually Rittenhouse. It was this guy Zeminski who had a gun, and while Rosenbaum was chasing him, he fired the gun in the air. Mm-hmm. And, suggested, now Rittenhouse said on the stand that him hearing that shot, also just took him, it took him from an 8 and sent him to a 10, just because, now I'm being chased, but there's also a guy with a gun behind me. It might be the guy
50 feet away.
Me. So, he says that on the stand, and it's believable, by the way. I mean, it's totally believable. You're being chased by a mob, you hear a gunshot. That would freak
one thing no one did a good job at explaining is that when these guns are going off, like none of them are wearing ear protection. They're all losing their hearing. So you're losing your sense of what's going on around you.
Oh,
Kyle even mentions that. It's like, I didn't have my hearing back after the first shooting, because he fired 4 rounds from an AR-15 with no ear protection.
Yeah, no. And one of the things that they tried to get him on later is saying when he was murmuring to a guy he was trying to get help from, he has a gun or had a gun. And so they thought he was talking about Rosenbaum, but it's quite possible he was talking about Zeminski and he was just in shock.
Mm-hmm. So the most powerful weapon that the media has is the quotes, the power of the quotes weapon. Look at this quote. I talk about this on the show all the time. It blows my mind how simple that is to do and how much power that holds to the viewers.
Mm-hmm. It does have a lot of power, but it's also necessary when you're wanting to disassociate yourself with a quote or a term.
It's a way that you can keep being factual about what you're talking about, but also signal to your readers that it's not
my opinion.
We don't want you to think that this is true.
or we don't agree with the statement.
It's like a mockery. It's almost like a mockery thing. Anyway, so so the Zeminski thing. So like what you're saying, like Rittenhouse probably at the time did not know that there was like to him he was just being chased by a mob and somebody in the mob has a gun. He didn't know, like all he heard was a gunshot and that spooked him.
And it also came out in this trial, and I didn't know this beforehand because I tried to avoid a lot of the non-trial stuff to be biased or avoid being biased. The people shouting, he shot him, he shot somebody, get him, chrome his ass, or dome his ass. Those were the Zeminskis. Those were
they were egging him on. Oh yeah, and Nick, tell us why.
Well, I think I already mentioned it. They're being prosecuted as well. They've got charges against them. One of them is for the disorderly discharge of a firearm. So they don't want to incriminate themselves in this case.
But wasn't your theory that they charged him so that they wouldn't be allowed to testify?
Yeah, that might be one thing. Is the prosecution might think the testimony would be so damning that they're like, "Hey, you sit out this case, and if we get a conviction, yours goes away too." That would be my guess.
Because it's in the court system, if there's multiple charges hinging on the same event, they usually either try them together or one after another. So and then obviously if you're being charged criminally in a case, they can't believe anything you say on the stand anyway.
Yeah.
So
the Zeminski's jury date's not till like January, so it's like way out of this will be over.
I would argue the prosecution's hedging its bets. They're not making a deal with the Zeminskis. I would say they're not making a deal with Zeminskis to testify on the case. Well, one, it could be very weird. That just doesn't help them. It might hurt them. But they're not making a deal with them because they want to nail them for something.
That's equally possible because the prosecution's all about just getting people thrown in jail. They're heartless.
I mean, they can probably still get both, right? So like, if Kyle gets off,
they high five each other after that.
Zeminski's. If Kyle gets nailed, they can still say the latter ones they're an accessory because they were instigating.
Yeah, do you guys maybe it's because so many people were just completely shut out of the peaceful protests that were going on in the 2020s, because like us three, we all saw what happened to people if they fell victim to one of those angry mobs. We've seen what happens. Like if you just happen to be on the ass kicking end of one of these mobs and they descend on you as one of their targets, at the very least, you're getting the shit beat out of you. Just at the very least. And I mean, we've seen people killed. Dude, we remember that one guy in Dallas who ran at them with the sword and how they left him like a pretzel on the sidewalk. Dude, I
don't remember that.
Oh man, that was just brutal.
I remember Bike Lock Professor, who they couldn't find for a longest time till I think it was, I want to say it was either Reddit or 4chan who investigated and found him.
We did it, Reddit.
Yeah, basically. And then there was a few other people, and these people were just they were crazy. Antifa was insane.
I'm not going to get into the whole story, but here's how they left him. So this is one of the now side note. This guy actually deserved it. That's a side note. This guy actually did like run at them with a sword.
Yeah, I mean you're brandishing a weapon at people. Wow.
My point is though, like for people who actually knows what can happen to people who get attacked by a mob, Rittenhouse was basically defending himself from becoming, one of the victims of an angry mob.
Think mosh pit with, weapons.
Think Astroworld. Too soon?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the hell Astroworld is. I was letting y'all do that.
Travis Scott had a concert there. 8 people died. And
that thing.
Oh, that was at Astroworld. No. Oh, yeah. What was it? 8 people were stomped to death?
No, so it came out that someone was probably passing around bad drugs, and they OD'd in the crowd. Everyone freaked out, and then 20 people got trampled and sent to the hospital. It was ridiculous. There'll probably be documentary on that shit show eventually, so let's not go into it.
Wow.
Yeah. What else happened?
I think we hit the highlights. Do you guys want to get into how we think things are going to close up?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, guest, you go first.
Okay, so there's three factors here. Obviously, we think if the jury is even.
Sorry, so I'm really sorry. 1 second before you go into that, let's just tell everybody, because we forgot to actually mention where we are right now. The defense just rested, so at this point, what we have left are closing arguments from both sides, and the jury kind of gets briefed on what they're supposed to be ruling on and the details of the charges, the specific charges, and
the law.
Yeah. So, and that's, I think, going to happen. They were talking about scheduling, and that's when I tuned out. I think it's either Friday or Monday.
So tonight they have to submit their final charges, their finalized charges that they're going to continue forward with. And then they possibly meet tomorrow without the jury to discuss it.
Okay.
The jury is scheduled to meet Monday for potentially 2.5 hours of the per side. So the defense gets a full 2.5 hours. The prosecution, for their opening statement and rebuttal, get a budget of 2.5 hours.
There's a rebuttal for the defense's argument?
Yes. So the prosecution, since they have the preponderance of evidence, they get the first statement, and instead of closing, they get to rebuttal after the defense.
But then does the defense also get to rebuttal?
No, because the preponderance of evidence is more on the prosecution. So
I thought these things were set up where the defense goes last. I thought that was always the case. Oh my God.
They get to close.
Prosecution gets to the bookends.
Sucks, dude. That fucking sucks. Is that typical?
Yeah,
that's not what I've seen. I thought
that's what they're saying.
Always went last.
No,
Maybe
they're saying that's only for opening.
Okay. Anyway,
because they have the preponderance of evidence, they set the tone, and then they set the final note.
Okay. Anyway, keep going.
So, but yeah, so we have one thing that has not been stated yet is the exact law. During Kyle's testimony, he mentioned what he thought the law was. They had to pause several times during that, and the judge had to remind the jury, just because his perception of the law was that if you're ignorant of the law, it doesn't mean you didn't commit a crime. So ignorance does not prove innocence. So
just because she says she's not 18, guys.
Okay.
So that's a little, I think I'm not going to go into that. And then, so there's that. So it's going to be the ruling on whether self-defense can be affirmed legally. Right now, as the case stands, I think any normal person not far on either side can agree that it seems that this is a self-defense case. One piece of evidence that with that enhanced footage is going to be huge. If it shows that he pulled, if it shows that he drew a gun on Zeminski before the chase with Rosenbaum, then he loses all self-defense. And even I will be like, well, dude, you if you pointed a gun at somebody beforehand, that's it.
Well, can I show the photo we're talking about?
Suicide by I have not seen it. Like, I didn't get okay. If anybody is a psych major or knows somebody or is a fan of certain comics, they know what a Rorschach is.
Mm-hmm.
Rorschach drop.
This is what the entire prosecution's case hinges on, is this photo now.
They are indicating here that this so what's this guy saying?
Break it down, man. What are we looking at? What is this?
You see that black line going across Kyle's chest? They're saying that's Kyle pointing a gun at Zeminski.
I can't even see that that's Kyle right now. I see something straight out of like Spy Kids.
Mm-hmm. And
Like,
it looks
the
like
defense,
he's going
the
like
defense
this.
was making a very good point that this is like you started at 30 pixels and then you blew it up and added a bunch of extrapolated pixels through an algorithm.
Yeah.
So a lot of this data here is just placed there by the zoom feature. It wasn't there before.
If there's smoothing, it's a problem. If it shows you blocks and squares, that's different, I think. If it's going to add pixels but continue to keep their pixel shape, I'm okay with that. This seems like they're smoothing.
I have no idea why
I
the
could be
judge
wrong.
allowed this to be admitted as evidence.
Yeah, so for people
judge
listening,
did.
after Rittenhouse's testimony, they spent the last part of the trial, like literally the rest of the trial, arguing about why you should or should not believe what you see in this picture. And then at the very end, they show the picture, and this is what they were talking about.
And I couldn't, from what they were briefly showing on the stream, the poor resolution of the stream and my internet connection and this, I couldn't see this. And even seeing this, I'm like, no wonder I didn't see shit.
So what is the defense saying he's doing?
The defense is just saying that this is, just pulled out of nowhere and it's adding and kind of distorting.
So they're just saying we can't trust it anyway.
They're saying it's not trustworthy. And they're saying that his testimony is what happened. No one's testifying otherwise.
Accurate representation of what's happening in the photo.
Right.
Yeah,
so
it kind of looks like he's holding the gun like across his body and pointing it to the left, right?
Is that white supposed to be his shirt?
Yeah, like the front of his shirt, I guess.
I'm guessing it's saying that's his hand.
I don't even.
And this black line is the gun, and this is.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying what it looks like is he's holding the gun up and pointing it to the left, his right.
Right, so you can't tell what the fuck's going on in this photo.
No, I'm just guessing. That's just what it looks
like.
Three
of
of
us all just gave three different answers.
Yeah. So here's the thing: if the jury thinks there might be something there, so I personally, I think any sane person.
As a joke, yeah.
I feel like any sane person would be like, I don't see it. I think anyone biased, this will affirm their bias. So then it goes back to your other point of if the jury was convinced he was guilty day 0, he's going to be guilty. If the jury was convinced he was guilty day 1, or innocent day 0, he's going to be innocent. If we, for some reason, have an unbiased jury or enough of one that was swayed, I personally think it's pointing towards innocent on the condition that the law is now that they are presented with doesn't say, hey, no, he's guilty. He can't be innocent because of he can't be affirmed self-defense, which was not even mentioned during the case, except because the judge wanted to say, look, I'm going to talk to him about the law. You guys talk about everything else. So they couldn't even argue over that.
Yeah.
So I think my vote is still that they're going to find him. Well, I don't think they'll even find him guilty of possession at this point.
You're changing your prediction.
My prediction is going to be clear of all charges.
Okay.
Because they even cleared the curfew one. So I'm predicting clear of all charges.
I don't think they even brought that one.
No, they dropped it. They dropped it during one of the
curfew. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because
that was the only one we know for sure.
Well, no, because it was actually dropped in another court case that happened since the charges had been brought.
Yeah, they said that the curfew order was unlawful, so it didn't apply.
Okay, well, that's cool.
And then the gun charge is ambiguous. So really, like if that one sticks, it all depends on the judge's instructions.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of like acquitted on all the homicide. Like I think self-defense will be shown. I'm on the fence about the gun charge because I have no idea what the jury instruction is going to be.
My original prediction was he's going to be found guilty on all counts.
How are you feeling about that?
I mean, I'm not going to change my prediction just because that's not what you're supposed to do. Like you're not supposed to change your bet during the game. So I'm gonna stick to it because that's what I predicted.
Yeah, but how do you feel about it?
Well, no, I mean, so if you're going by the trial, it's just slam dunk for the defense. Like it went so well for the defense. The only thing the prosecution really got in my mind came from, I'm sorry, Rittenhouse deciding to testify, and the prosecution kind of tied him up into knots in front of everybody and made him admit some things that definitely makes him look bad no matter how you shake it. So when he asked him things like, for example, when you aimed your gun at this person, do you understand how when you aim a gun at a person, it makes them fear for their life and make them think and act like you're going to kill them? It's like, well, the answer is yes. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, but
he didn't.
I think Rittenhouse answered that properly.
I mean, he answered it the only way he could, but it's one of those questions that it's just by its very nature, it makes you look bad no matter what the situation is. And that's why so the only thing that's really the only thing the prosecution had going for them. And Gage's story, it's very possible that it connected with one of the jury, like maybe somebody really connected with Gage and then they didn't believe the cross-examination. I think if the jury was a robot, like if we had a situation where the law is like software and the jury's robots and they're going to get the right answer every single time, it's slam dunk self-defense. He's going to walk. But I don't believe that people work that way. I believe they had their minds made up before they sat down, even if they were kind of generally unopinionated or unfamiliar with the issue. Deep in their bones, they already have this kind of like, sympathetic towards self-defense and gun rights, or, sympathetic towards, why is he out there brandishing a gun? He's looking for trouble. He must have been like, wanting this to happen. Like, I don't know.
I think the people who say he's looking for trouble will even ignore the testimony of them saying we weren't counter protesting. We were just defending the property from people who were making trouble.
And we know for a fact that there are people who are willing to lie in order to be seated as jurors. They'll lie about their opinions about stuff. They'll lie about their past. They'll lie about, are you aware of anything about this trial? Nope. Got no idea.
I'm pretty sure the judge just picked a bunch of people and said, who doesn't know? And I'm pretty sure most of them knew.
Everybody knew about it. So the odds that they're going to find people, and there's a lot of people who say that they don't have an opinion, but they actually do. Like deep down, they kind of do. They've just convinced themselves that they're this, rational actor and that they can have their minds changed. So that's really the question. Are there more people sympathetic to Kyle in the jury, or are there more people hostile towards Kyle in the jury? And that's what it's going to boil down to. And that's really what we're waiting around to find out.
One last prediction. I think this is the most important one. If you could share what I put on the screen.
What is the
cookies did the judge order?
Wait, but Nick Prime. So effectively you and I have swapped from our initial predictions. I said everything but the gun charge he was going to get acquitted of, and you said everything, and now we've kind of swapped.
Yeah, I'm the only one who stuck to my guns, man.
It's a Nick thing.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to go with if I can share from the catalog.
Snickerdoodle.
He's gonna get a really old. Yeah, what's an old school cookie?
Hold on.
An old butter cookie.
What's that?
I'm going with Grammy's oatmeal cookies. That looks good.
Back in the day, I can't remember the actual trial, but
so these chocolate chip bars look good. That's not a cookie though. Come on, Judge.
Yeah. Oh, I do have a picture, but it requires some enhancing.
Oh, well then it's no good.
Enhance.
Yeah.
Then it's no good.
Objection.
Hold on. You guys gonna permit it? Enhance. This is his face when Stay Puft prosecutor said, "Hold on 1 second, Judge."
I think that just might be his normal face.
No, it got deeper. He's like,
stared into his soul. All right.
Stay puffed.
No, I'm using the pinch and whatever.
Pinch and zoom.
Yes. Pinch and zoom.
All right. What else you guys got? Let's share some. Now it's time for the memes. We're gonna end this with just best court memes. Let's go.
I gotta pick them up. Jeez, put me on the spot here. I did send them all to you though.
Yeah, that's basically go to, which I can't get on right now. I need you guys to do it. Oh, here we go. So what do we got here?
Scrolling up in the chat.
Oh wait, no, it would mostly be on, because Nick is very bad at finding funny things and not sharing them on Twitter for me.
I'm sorry. Here, I'll send them to you on Twitter.
I don't know what his hang up is about it. Well, never mind. We'll just, if you want to see him, go to our Twitter page. We'll just go on a Rittenhouse meme sharing spree, and you can see that. We'll end with this one. What do we got here? Zoom in. What?
I like this one. What is a 223? It's a very large caliber. It's literally like the smallest.
Vaporizing rifle.
I like this. I was shot point blank and now missing 90% of my bicep. I'm in excruciating pain that just doesn't go away, both in my arm and my heart. Gabe Graviwadovich, second place finalist of Connextra Quick Draw Competition 2020.
Amazing. Yeah, he looked a lot different when he sat. All right, guys. I guess that's it. So we're gonna have one more. It looks like we got one more episode to make, and it's gonna be about
the verdict.
The verdict. We're either gonna be very depressed, or we're gonna be very, very happy, and we get to watch some more riot footage. My favorite thing in the world to watch.
Oh my gosh! Send me in. I will get a 3D camera and go to the riots in person this time.
I would do that, dude. I would just make my show a riot coverage show if there was enough of them going on. I can't get enough.
Dude, I'll take my plate carrier across state lines and have an extra battery pack and a 3D camera.
If Trump runs for president again, his slogan should be like, Trump, you know you want them back.
We're in Texas though. The state line's pretty far.
Yeah. I mean, half the drive will be getting out of Texas to get to this place.
Yeah. It's not like Kyle where he had to drive 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's mob season. All right, guys, let's wrap. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Adios.
Have a good one.